Perhaps Egypt's greatest miracle isn't the pyramids that have stood for thousands of years, but the way its people have built a thriving agricultural industry in a land that seems to be nothing but endless sand and scorching sun. So what has made Egyptian agriculture so successful, transforming a nation famous for its vast deserts into one of the world's most remarkable agricultural producers? Right now, join Agriculture Insight as we uncover the fascinating stories and little-known facts behind Egypt's agricultural success and discover how this extraordinary country has achieved remarkable farming accomplishments in one of the driest regions on Earth. From above, most of Egypt appears to be an endless sea of golden sand stretching to the horizon. Yet in the middle of this seemingly lifeless landscape, a vibrant green ribbon follows the course of the Nile River, creating one of the most striking contrasts found anywhere in the world. This narrow strip of fertile land has sustained Egyptian civilization for thousands of years and remains the heart of the country's agriculture today. Enriched by the Nile's nutrient-rich silt, Egyptians have continuously adapted and innovated, overcoming harsh natural conditions to develop a wide range of agricultural industries. That is why, despite being a nation where the vast majority of the land is covered by desert, agriculture continues to play a vital role in Egypt's economy and stands as one of the country's greatest sources of pride. Few people realize that behind the captivating fragrance of many of the world's finest perfumes lie vast jasmine fields in Egypt. The country is one of the world's largest producers and exporters of jasmine, supplying a vital raw material to the global perfume industry. Grown primarily in the Nile Delta, Egyptian jasmine is renowned for its rich, intense aroma, high essential oil content, and consistently exceptional quality. These qualities have made it a preferred ingredient for many of the world's most prestigious perfume brands. To preserve the jasmine's purest fragrance, harvesting begins while the fields are still covered in darkness. From around 3 to 4 a.m., just as the blossoms open and their essential oil content reaches its peak, thousands of workers spread out across the fields. Unlike many other crops that can be harvested mechanically, jasmine flowers are still picked entirely by hand. Harvesters carefully pluck each delicate blossom, taking great care not to bruise the petals, as even the slightest damage can reduce the quality of the essential oil. The work requires both precision and speed because once the sun rises higher, the flowers gradually begin to lose their fragrance. Within just a few hours, baskets are quickly filled with millions of tiny white blossoms, their sweet aroma drifting across the fields. Immediately after harvesting, the jasmine flowers are transported to processing facilities as quickly as possible to preserve their natural fragrance. There, the blossoms undergo specialized extraction processes to produce precious jasmine essence, a highly valued ingredient used in luxury perfumes, cosmetics, and a wide range of premium personal care products. It is this strict farm-to-factory process that has helped establish Egyptian jasmine as one of the most sought-after fragrance ingredients on the international market. For thousands of years, tilapia has appeared in the wall paintings of pharaohs' tombs, making it one of the fish species most closely associated with ancient Egyptian civilization. Even today, its importance remains unchanged. Egypt is the largest producer of tilapia in Africa and ranks among the world's leading tilapia-producing countries, with an annual output exceeding 1 million metric tons. To meet growing demand, tilapia is farmed in earthen ponds, floating cages along the Nile River, and large-scale aquaculture facilities. After stocking, it typically takes about 6 to 8 months for the fish to reach a harvest weight of 300 to 500 grams. Throughout the growing cycle, farmers carefully monitor water quality, dissolved oxygen levels, and feeding programs to ensure healthy growth and consistent production. When the fish reach market size, the water level in the ponds is gradually lowered to make harvesting more efficient. Large seine nets are then slowly pulled across the water, guiding the fish into a concentrated area. This stage requires close coordination among multiple workers to minimize stress and prevent injuries, helping preserve the fish's quality. Once the fish have been gathered, they are lifted from the water using nets or specialized lifting equipment and quickly transferred to the sorting system. There, the fish are graded by size, with any that do not meet quality standards removed. The selected fish are then placed in clean, aerated holding tanks to maintain their freshness before being transported to processing facilities. After arriving at the processing plant, the tilapia undergoes a series of steps, including cleaning, grading, filleting, or freezing, before being packaged for distribution to both domestic and international markets. With its firm white flesh, relatively few fine bones, and affordable price, tilapia has become one of Egypt's most important seafood products. Beyond helping meet the country's growing demand for protein, the tilapia industry provides livelihoods for hundreds of thousands of people living throughout the Nile Delta and along the Nile River, playing a vital role in the economic development and well-being of local communities. Not all oranges are grown for fresh consumption. In fact, Valencia oranges are among the most widely used varieties in the juice industry thanks to their high juice content, well-balanced sweetness, and distinctive aroma. In Egypt, Valencia oranges are cultivated on a large scale and have become one of the country's leading agricultural exports, generating valuable foreign exchange revenue for the national economy. As winter comes to an end, Egypt's orange groves transform into a sea of brilliant golden color. Millions of ripe Valencia oranges blanket the trees, signaling the arrival of one of the busiest harvest seasons of the year. From early morning, workers head into the orchards carrying specialized pruning shears and harvesting baskets, carefully clipping each orange from the branch to avoid bruising the peel or damaging the stem. Even the smallest scratch can reduce the fruit's quality and shorten its shelf life, especially for oranges destined for export markets. After harvesting, the fruit is carefully placed into collection bins to minimize impacts and bruising during transport from the orchard to the packing facility. At the packing facility, Valencia oranges are thoroughly washed to remove dirt and impurities before passing through an automated sorting system equipped with cameras and sensors that evaluate the size, color, and quality of each fruit. Oranges that meet export standards are then dried and coated with a thin layer of food-grade wax to help retain freshness and reduce moisture loss during transportation. Finally, they are packed into cardboard cartons or specialized trays before being distributed to domestic markets and exported around the world. Thanks to their consistent quality and excellent storage life, Valencia oranges have become one of Egypt's most important agricultural exports, generating substantial foreign exchange earnings while providing employment and income for thousands of farming families. With their deep root systems and exceptional drought tolerance, olive trees have become far more than just another crop in Egypt. They have played a key role in expanding cultivable land, greening vast stretches of arid terrain, and helping slow the spread of desertification. Today, olive groves stretch across many regions of Egypt, generating significant economic value while standing as a powerful symbol of the country's ability to adapt its agriculture to one of the world's harshest natural environments. As the harvest season begins, massive self-propelled harvesting machines slowly move down the rows of olive trees. The harvesting system straddles each row, while hundreds of flexible beating rods vibrate at high frequency, gently dislodging ripe olives from the branches without damaging the trees. The fallen olives are immediately collected by conveyor belts inside the machine, where they are preliminarily cleaned before being transferred into onboard storage bins. In just a matter of seconds, an entire section of the orchard can be harvested, dramatically increasing efficiency while significantly reducing labor requirements. This advanced technology enables large-scale farms to harvest thousands of tons of olives each season. Once collected, the olives are transported directly to the processing plant as quickly as possible to preserve their freshness and ensure the highest quality olive oil. After harvesting, the olives are transported to the processing plant as quickly as possible to preserve their freshness and quality. There, they are thoroughly washed to remove leaves, dirt, and other impurities before being crushed into a fine olive paste. The paste is then slowly mixed in a process known as malaxation, allowing tiny oil droplets to combine into larger ones. Next, it is fed into a press, or more commonly a centrifuge, where the olive oil is separated from the water and solid residue. Finally, the oil is filtered, quality tested, and bottled before being distributed to domestic and international markets. With its distinctive flavor and consistently high quality, Egyptian olive oil not only meets domestic demand, but is also exported to many countries around the world. This has helped increase the value of olive cultivation while generating an important source of income for Egypt's agricultural sector. Long before modern machinery in the fields, water buffalo had been the trusted companions of Egyptian farmers for thousands of years. With their remarkable strength, heat tolerance, and ability to thrive in the wetlands along the Nile River, these animals have played a vital role not only in agricultural work, but also as an important source of milk for millions of households. To meet the growing demand for dairy products, water buffalo are widely raised throughout Egypt's agricultural regions along the Nile. They are kept in well-ventilated barns with access to water pools or mud wallows, allowing them to cool down in the intense heat while protecting themselves from insects. Their diet mainly consists of fresh forage, silage, and agricultural byproducts such as straw and corn stalks, helping maintain their health and consistent milk production. Thanks to their exceptional adaptability to harsh environmental conditions, water buffalo remain one of the most important livestock species in Egypt. During the milking period, the buffalo are brought to the milking area on a regular daily schedule. After their udders are thoroughly cleaned, the milk is collected either by hand or using automated milking systems before being rapidly cooled in refrigerated tanks to preserve its freshness prior to transportation. Once delivered to the processing plant, the buffalo milk is pasteurized and processed into mozzarella cheese, butter, yogurt, and a variety of other dairy products. Thanks to its naturally high fat and protein content, buffalo milk is prized for its rich, creamy flavor and contributes significant economic value to Egypt's dairy industry. Thanks to its hot, dry climate, abundant sunshine, and minimal rainfall, Egypt offers ideal conditions for growing high-quality onions. These natural conditions produce onions with firm, dry outer skins, balanced moisture content, and an extended shelf life, giving Egyptian onions a strong competitive advantage in international markets. As a result, onions have become one of the country's most widely cultivated and exported vegetable crops. Once the onions reach maturity, large-scale farms rely on specialized harvesting machines to maximize efficiency. The machine moves steadily along the planting rows, while an undercutting blade gently slices beneath the soil, lifting the entire onion crop from the ground. The onions are then carried onto a vibrating conveyor system, which shakes off excess soil before conveying them to the surface. Depending on the production system, the leaves and roots may be trimmed directly on the machine or removed during a later processing stage. After harvesting, the onions are spread evenly across the field and left to cure naturally under the sun for several days. This drying process allows the outer skins to harden and seal, extending shelf life and improving overall quality before the onions are transported to the packing facility. Once the curing process is complete, the onions are cleaned, graded, and packed for both domestic distribution and export. Thanks to Egypt's naturally hot and arid climate, Egyptian onions are well known for their excellent storage life, making them highly sought after in markets around the world. Not only the fertile lands along the Nile River, but also Egypt's vast desert and semi-desert regions are home to millions of goats. With their exceptional drought tolerance, these hardy animals are well adapted to the country's intense heat, surviving on sparse vegetation such as shrubs, dry grasses, and scattered desert plants. For this reason, many rural communities continue to practice traditional free-range herding, guiding their flocks across arid landscapes in search of natural forage. At the same time, modern farms combine grazing with carefully managed feeding programs, providing concentrated feed, clean water, and regular veterinary care to improve both productivity and herd health. Thanks to their remarkable adaptability and relatively low production costs, goats have become an essential source of both meat and milk. Beyond supplying nutritious food, goat farming also provides a stable livelihood for thousands of families living in Egypt's dry and desert regions. As one of the largest countries in Africa, covering more than 1.2 million square kilometers, South Africa has land, sunlight, and major production regions, but it lacks the factor that decides the fate of every field: water. When droughts last for long periods, the ground cracks, grasslands turn yellow, and many natural lakes shrink to the bottom. The question is no longer what to grow, but how to retain every cubic meter of water before it disappears. The biggest solution lies on the Orange River, where Gariep Dam has become one of South Africa's most important reservoirs, with a capacity of more than 5.3 billion cubic meters. During the rainy season, this structure stores upstream flows. In the dry season, the water is distributed through canals, tunnels, and pumping stations to supply irrigation areas in Free State and Eastern Cape. But dams like Gariep cannot appear everywhere. They require many years of construction, huge investment, and always come with trade-offs for natural river flows. That is why South Africa has developed a more flexible network: farm reservoirs, irrigation ponds, and intermediate storage tanks. On commercial farms, the process begins with bulldozers and excavators. The ground is dug into basins ranging from a few hundred to tens of thousands of square meters, then leveled, compacted, and covered with an HDPE waterproof liner about 1 to 2 millimeters thick. This liner helps limit water seepage into the soil, reduce losses, prevent erosion along the reservoir banks, and turn an ordinary earth pit into a water storage system that can support irrigation across multiple seasons. In more difficult areas where machinery can barely reach, reservoirs are created with hose, shovels, and human labor. These water pits are only about 1 to 2 meters deep, but during the dry season they can become survival storage, holding drinking water for livestock and saving an entire crop season from failure. In the dry, hot regions of Free State, Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga, where rainfall is low and the sun can scorch an entire crop season, South Africa still harvests more than 150,000 tons of sorghum each year. Seen as the drought-resistant warrior of South African agriculture, sorghum does not need too much water to survive. It sends its roots deep into the soil, flowers under harsh sunlight, and creates an industry worth more than $30 million USD each year. On South Africa's large-scale sorghum farms, the season does not begin with a hoe, but with modern machines from the United States and Europe. Land levelers first flatten the field, removing raised ridges and filling low spots so water, fertilizer, and seeds can be distributed more evenly. Then, pneumatic seed drills dozens of meters wide move in, opening furrows, placing the seeds at the correct depth, and pressing the soil back down in a single pass. And then, after about 4 to 5 months under South Africa's harsh sun, when the sorghum heads turn reddish-brown and the grain moisture reaches the right level, the harvest begins. Unlike the vast, flat sorghum fields in the United States, many growing areas in South Africa are smaller and have more uneven terrain, so harvesters must operate slowly, steadily, and precisely to reduce grain loss. The header is raised to the right height of the sorghum heads. The reel gently guides the plants into the threshing drum, and then the grains are separated from the seed heads, cleaned through a system of sieves and fans, and flow straight into the grain tank in a single pass. After harvest, the sorghum grains enter the milling plant, where they are cleaned, separated from impurities, and ground into fine flour before becoming part of the national food supply chain. In South Africa, sorghum has become a famine rescue crop. As many other food crops decline under drought, quietly helping protect food security for millions of people across dry lands. As Spain's biggest rival in the race to claim the crown of orange exports, South Africa is no longer a name outside the global fruit map, but a country that continues to conquer new milestones. In 2025, its citrus industry set a record by exporting more than 3.5 million tons of fruit, bringing in $2.7 billion USD. And to extend that chain of achievements, South African oranges are not simply planted and left waiting for harvest. They are treated as an export product from the moment they are still hidden deep within the canopy. Across vast rows of trees, tower fan mist sprayers move slowly through the orchard, with 2 large fans generating powerful airflow that pushes a fine mist through layers of leaves, coating the branches, stems, and fruit surfaces. For export orange orchards, this is not only a pest and disease prevention step, but also a way to keep every orange clean, healthy, and attractive enough before entering the harvest season. Although South Africa has one of the most modern agricultural industries in Africa, its export oranges are still mainly picked by hand to avoid scratched stems, bruised skins, and loss of value. First, workers wear breathable cloth picking bags in front of their bodies, reach into the canopy, gently twist and firmly snap each fruit from the stem. For clusters that are higher or hidden deep inside the canopy, they place ladders close to the tree trunk to reach them without dropping the fruit or breaking branches. When the bags are full, the oranges are gently transferred into plastic crates, taken to the collection point for weighing and preliminary inspection, and then transported to the factory. At the packing plant, they are cleaned, brushed free of dust, inspected for skin defects, and sorted to remove fruit that does not meet the standard before moving along packing conveyors. The best-looking oranges are neatly placed into branded boxes and loaded onto large pallets, ready for export. In South Africa, sugarcane is not just a crop, but the lifeline of many rural regions, creating jobs for hundreds of thousands of workers, supporting more than 1 million livelihoods, and contributing around 1.4 billion USD each year to the sugar industry value chain. Across the sugarcane growing regions of KwaZulu-Natal, fire still appears on some fields to burn off dry leaves before harvest. But under pressure from environmental regulations, the sugarcane season is gradually shifting toward mechanization. Unlike the giant harvesters operating on Brazil's flat fields, machines in South Africa are designed to be more compact and flexible, allowing them to move through steep terrain, smaller plots, and growing areas mixed with residential communities. As the machine enters the sugarcane rows, the front blades cut close to the base, the feed rollers pull the stalks into the cutting chamber, chop them into short billets, and carry them up the elevator before dropping them directly into a trailer moving alongside. keeping the flow of raw material almost uninterrupted. However, behind the shift from fire to machinery, there are still dust, engine noise, and diesel emissions, showing that South Africa's sugarcane industry still needs to keep improving in order to maintain productivity while reducing environmental pressure. But harvesting is only the beginning. As soon as sugarcane leaves the field, it immediately enters a race against time, because within just a few hours, the sugar content inside the stalks already begins to decline. Convoys of trucks head one after another toward the factory, where each batch of sugarcane is weighed, sampled, and sent straight onto the crushing line within the same day. After a series of processing steps, the rough sugarcane stalks are transformed into export standard sugar. But behind that sweetness is fierce competition, as South African sugar continues to face pressure from other countries, forcing the entire industry to keep raising productivity in order to hold its market position. With a pair of horns as thick as 2 steel shields and a body that can weigh nearly 1 ton, the South African buffalo is not only one of Africa's most dangerous animals, but also known among many hunters by a fearsome name, the living tank of the savannah. Despite its slow-looking appearance, the buffalo can accelerate to nearly 60 kilometers per hour, has a strong memory, and is famous for its powerful herd instinct. When one individual is attacked, a herd of hundreds can turn back and counterattack all at once, turning the predator into the target within just a few seconds. Even lions and leopards often prefer calves, old and weak animals, or individuals separated from the herd, rather than facing a fully grown buffalo directly. Although it is ranked among the most dangerous animals in Africa, the buffalo is actually a herbivore. Its day often begins by grazing on the grasslands of Kruger or Hluluwe Mfolozi. But its greatest preference is not eating, but wallowing in mud, because this not only helps it cool down, but also creates a natural sunscreen layer that retains moisture and drives away ticks, flies, and parasites. When the mud layer dries, familiar visitors such as red-billed oxpeckers immediately land, carefully picking ticks from the buffalo's back, creating one of the most famous symbiotic relationships on the African savanna. It is this wild lifestyle, strong herd instinct, and unpredictable reaction that make the African buffalo almost impossible to domesticate like cattle. In South Africa's reserves, the victims are sometimes safari vehicles that accidentally block the path of a buffalo herd. Just one charge from a mature animal weighing nearly 1 ton can turn a peaceful tour into a moment no one wants to experience twice. In South Africa, this species can still be hunted under strict permits and quotas. But taking down a living tank has never been simple, because just one wrong approach or one inaccurate shot can quickly turn the hunter into the target of a sudden counterattack. Although they do not provide direct economic value like farmed livestock, they still play an important role in ecological balance, as their movement, grazing, and herd-based lifestyle help maintain the natural grassland structure of South Africa. With a sheep population of around 22 million, South Africa is considered one of the most important sheep farming countries in the Southern Hemisphere. Here, merino sheep are not only a source of premium wool sought after around the world, but also a form of living wealth, quietly supporting generations of farmers across dry lands. If New Zealand stands out for its green pastures, and Australia is known for its vast sheep stations, sheep farming in South Africa carries a harsher character. Limited water, sparse grass, dry soil, and predators always lurking nearby. During the day, merino flocks spread across wide grazing areas to feed on natural grass, low shrubs, and drought-resistant plants. By the end of the day, they are herded through narrow, winding corridors like a maze, where farmers check their health, sort the flock, and guide them back to safe pens before night falls. In semi-arid regions such as the Karoo and Eastern Cape, natural pasture is not always enough to support a high-value fleece. So when the dry season lasts too long, large hay bales are transported into the grazing areas like living reserves, while mobile feed troughs provide extra rations mixed with energy, protein, mineral salts, and trace elements. After about 10 to 12 months before the dry heat reaches its peak, merino sheep enter the shearing season. Each animal is held in a leaning sitting position, with its back resting against the shearer's legs to limit struggling, while an electric shearing machine hanging above helps keep the cut smooth, light, and continuous. Thanks to speed and precise technique, South African shearers can remove a large fleece in just 2 to 3 minutes, handling around 150 to 250 sheep per day. Raised in South Africa's dry climate, merino wool is often bright in color, fine, soft, and able to provide warmth while still remaining breathable. This quality allows it to enter the high-end fashion chain, where luxury houses such as Loro Piana, Chanel, and Hermès are always searching for pure wool lines to make coats, scarves, and luxury garments. Amid the scorching desert, lush, green circular fields stretching more than 1 kilometer in diameter have become a symbol of Saudi Arabia's ambition to transform the desert into a large-scale, food-producing region. These man-made oases are not clustered together, but are scattered across areas that sit above some of the country's largest ancient groundwater aquifers. At the center of each circle is a well drilled hundreds of meters deep, more than a kilometer deep in some locations, penetrating rock formations that have existed for millions of years. From there, water is pumped to a massive mechanized irrigation system that slowly rotates around a fixed pivot point. The system typically takes between 12 and 24 hours to complete a full irrigation cycle, and to withstand the extreme desert heat, it may have to operate almost continuously throughout the growing season. It was here that Saudi Arabia's wheat miracle emerged in the late 20th century, when vast oil revenues enabled the large-scale deployment of thousands of center pivot irrigation systems. As a result, wheat production increased from virtually nothing to more than 4 million tons per year, transforming Saudi Arabia from a food importing nation into a self-sufficient producer that even exported wheat to neighboring countries. Farming schedules are carefully planned to maximize the use of available water. Wheat is planted during the winter and harvested in the spring before temperatures rise sharply. During the summer, many farms switch to alfalfa for livestock feed, corn, potatoes, or other crops that are better suited to extreme heat. Because these fields are designed around a fixed irrigation center, each one can be managed as a standardized production unit. GPS-guided tractors, seeders, and harvesters can operate with remarkable precision along each cultivation ring, reducing overlap, minimizing waste, and processing dozens of hectares in a single operation. However, behind this prosperity in the face of an unforgiving climate lies a critical weakness for the entire agricultural sector: how to sustain production while groundwater resources are being extracted at ever greater depths. From a geometric perspective, arranging circular fields side by side leaves up to 21% of the land between them without access to irrigation water. But an even greater challenge lies beneath the surface. Groundwater in these regions naturally contains significant amounts of dissolved minerals, while summer temperatures frequently exceed 110 degrees Celsius. Water evaporates rapidly after irrigation, but the salts remain in the soil. Over time, these salts accumulate, reducing crop yields, degrading soil quality, and eventually rendering entire fields unsuitable for cultivation unless regular leaching is carried out. This problem is far less severe in Egypt, where abundant fresh water from the Nile continuously replenishes the soil and helps flush away accumulated salts. However, desalinating seawater is not a cheap solution. For decades, most of Saudi Arabia's freshwater was produced through thermal desalination, a process that heats seawater to generate steam, which is then condensed into freshwater. This method is highly reliable, but it consumes enormous amounts of energy, effectively requiring the burning of millions of barrels of oil each year. To reduce costs and conserve its oil resources, most modern desalination plants have shifted to a more efficient solution: reverse osmosis technology. Instead of boiling water, the system uses extremely high pressure to force seawater through ultrafine membranes that trap salt and impurities. As a result, the cost of producing fresh water has fallen significantly, helping Saudi Arabia become the world's largest producer of desalinated water. Yet the fundamental challenge remains unchanged. Water may be more abundant, but if all of the water used for agriculture comes from desalination plants, production costs rise rapidly, making many staple food crops difficult to compete economically. For this reason, Saudi Arabia began pursuing a more ambitious goal: maximizing agricultural output from every cubic meter of water used. And that is precisely why high-tech greenhouse complexes are gradually becoming the center of modern Saudi agriculture. In North America and Europe, greenhouses are primarily used to protect crops from harsh winter weather and extend the growing season. In Saudi Arabia, however, their purpose is almost the exact opposite: keeping crops cool while using as little water as possible. Today, thousands of hectares of modern greenhouses can be found across the country, particularly around Riyadh and the major agricultural regions of central Saudi Arabia. Inside these facilities, large exhaust fans continuously remove hot air while evaporative cooling pads help lower temperatures. As a result, conditions inside the greenhouse are typically maintained at around 72 to 77 degrees Celsius, creating an environment where high-value crops such as tomatoes, cucumbers, and sweet peppers can be grown year-round, rather during a single season. Water is delivered directly to the root zone through drip irrigation systems, ensuring that every liter of water, Saudi Arabia's most precious resource, is used as efficiently as possible. This is especially important because fruits and vegetables, while essential to the diet, require large amounts of water to produce. For decades, Saudi Arabia relied heavily on imports to meet much of its demand for fresh produce. Today, however, a growing share of that supply is being produced domestically, instead of being shipped thousands of kilometers from Europe, Turkey, or neighboring Mediterranean countries. A greenhouse tomato plant typically takes about 3 to 4 months to produce its first harvest and continue bearing fruit for many months afterward. Once the tomatoes reach the desired size and ripeness, they are carefully picked, sorted, and packed by hand before being transported to distribution centers across the country. For Saudi consumers, this locally grown produce is often fresher than imported alternatives. Rather than spending days or even weeks traveling across international supply chains, it can be harvested and delivered to market within a much shorter period of time, even when it is grown in the middle of the desert. Thousands of years before the first oil field was discovered, there was one crop that enabled people to survive in the harsh Arabian desert: the date palm. Today, more than 30 million date palm trees are still cultivated across Saudi Arabia, producing over 1.6 million tons of dates annually and placing the country among the world's largest date producers. The heart of this industry lies in Al Qasim, the largest date-growing region in Saudi Arabia. Here, a date palm can take between 5 and 8 years before it begins producing significant yields, but once established, it can continue bearing fruit for decades. From August to October each year, the harvest season transforms these farms into non-stop operations. Date clusters weighing tens of kilograms are cut down from heights of more than 10 meters using specialized lifting equipment or by workers who climb directly up the trunks. Although Saudi Arabia ranks among the wealthiest countries in the world by per capita income, Most of this work is still carried out by migrant laborers from South Asia and East Africa, the workforce that powers much of the Gulf region's agricultural sector. After harvest, thousands of tons of dates are transported to Barada, home to the largest date market in the world. During the peak season, long lines of trucks loaded with produce arrive continuously from across the country. The dates are sold through public auctions before moving on to modern processing facilities where they are cleaned, graded, packaged, and prepared for export. From the oases that once helped people survive in the desert, Saudi dates can now be found on supermarket shelves across the Middle East, Europe, North America, and Southeast Asia. Demand rises especially sharply during Ramadan, a period that can account for nearly 1/3 of annual sales, when hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world use dates to break their daily fast, continuing a tradition that has endured for more than a millennium. Alongside its ancient date palms, the Saudi desert is also nurturing a fruit tree that seems unlikely to survive in such an arid environment: the orange tree. Few people would expect to find orange-growing regions spanning thousands of hectares in the middle of Saudi Arabia's deserts. At Al Jaf Farm and in key agricultural regions across central Saudi Arabia, such as Al Kharj, growers cultivate more than 5 million sweet orange trees, producing over 150,000 tons of oranges each year. For an orange tree, a crop that naturally requires significant amounts of water, to produce juicy fruit in the middle of the desert, Saudi farmers must solve their greatest challenge: providing enough water without losing precious drops to the hot, dry air. Irrigation water is drawn from geological formations hundreds of meters below the surface and delivered directly to the root zone through drip irrigation systems, minimizing evaporation as much as possible. When the harvest season begins, typically running from November through March, farms race against time to pick the fruit entirely by hand in order to prevent damage to the delicate skin. Because desert temperatures rise rapidly after sunrise, workers often begin as early as 4 a.m., carefully clipping each orange from the tree and placing it into containers before the fruit is loaded onto refrigerated trucks that travel through the night. Saudi oranges also possess a fascinating biological characteristic. Thanks to intense year-round sunlight and the large temperature differences between day and night, the trees tend to accumulate higher levels of natural sugars in their fruit. As a result, many orange varieties grown in Al Jaf are known for their rich sweetness and high juice content, despite being cultivated in one of the driest regions on Earth. Even more interestingly, these temperature fluctuations create a unique phenomenon. For the peel to develop its bright orange color, the trees must experience winter nights below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Otherwise, the fruit may remain green on the outside, even though the flesh inside is fully ripe. The success of these orange groves in the sand has not only enabled Saudi Arabia to meet nearly 50% of domestic demand during the harvest season, but has also demonstrated that crops traditionally associated with Mediterranean climates can be grown commercially in the desert when sufficient technology and water resources are available. Although Ethiopia lies near the equator, instead of being concentrated in hot deserts or savannas, most of the country's population and agricultural activity are located on highlands, ranging from 1,100 to more than 3,000 meters above sea level. This remarkable elevation makes Ethiopia an exception in Africa. Its cool climate, abundant rainfall, and fertile mountain slopes have nurtured the forests where Arabica coffee originated. Vast grasslands that support tens of millions of livestock, and grain fields stretching across the highlands. However, this terrain has also made the development of large-scale agriculture a constant challenge. Mountains and valleys divide the landscape, making farming, transportation, and the expansion of agricultural production far more complicated than on the vast plains of the United States or Europe. For thousands of years, Ethiopians have had to adapt to these conditions. And it is this process of adaptation that has created one of the most diverse and distinctive agricultural systems in Africa. Did you know that around 60% of the world's coffee production comes from Arabica coffee? In the homeland of this coffee variety, scientists believe that the first wild Arabica plants emerged in the rainforests of the Ethiopian highlands thousands of years ago. Today, many of these forests still preserve natural Arabica populations, which are considered one of the world's most important coffee gene reservoirs, as climate change and disease increasingly threaten coffee-growing regions. To make use of this treasure, coffee harvesting in Ethiopia is carried out almost entirely by hand due to the country's high altitude, steep, and fragmented terrain. The workforce mainly consists of smallholder farmers and local residents living in the highlands. They must walk deep into forests or plantations, carefully selecting and picking each ripe coffee cherry by hand rather than stripping entire branches at once. This work requires tremendous patience and sustained physical effort. After harvest, coffee is typically processed using two main methods. Most Ethiopian coffee undergoes dry processing, in which the coffee cherries are left intact with their skin and fruit flesh before being spread out on raised bamboo drying beds under the sun for several weeks. During this period, farmers must constantly turn the cherries to ensure even drying and prevent mold growth. Once fully dried, the outer layers are removed using milling machines to reveal the green coffee beans inside. Spending days resting inside the sweet fruit allows the beans to absorb natural sugars, resulting in rich, sweet coffees with notes of ripe fruits such as blueberry, peach, and honey, flavors that are highly prized in the specialty coffee market. Meanwhile, wet processed coffee is sent directly to a depulping machine immediately after harvesting. Here, rotating drums and flowing water quickly remove most of the outer skin and fruit flesh, helping to prevent uncontrolled fermentation that could negatively affect the flavor of the beans. However, after this stage, the coffee beans are still coated with a sticky, sugar-rich mucilage layer. They are therefore soaked in water tanks for 24 to 72 hours, allowing naturally occurring microorganisms to break down the remaining mucilage. Once fermentation is complete, an important manual sorting stage begins. Farmers use wooden rakes to continuously stir the beans through flowing water channels, washing away any remaining mucilage. The beans are then spread out on raised drying beds for approximately 7 to 15 days until their moisture content falls to around 10 to 12%. During this period, farmers must turn the beans several times a day to ensure even drying and prevent mold growth. Only after reaching the target moisture level are the beans milled to remove the protective parchment layer, producing green coffee beans ready for export and roasting. Because the beans are separated from the fruit flesh before drying, this method produces a distinctly different final product. A cleaner cup, brighter and more pronounced acidity, and a clearer expression of the coffee's intrinsic flavor characteristics. From here, roughly 500,000 tons of coffee are shipped from Ethiopia each year, making the country the largest coffee producer and exporter in Africa. Long before lattes, pour-overs, or modern espresso machines appeared, Ethiopians had already perfected one of the oldest coffee traditions in the world. During traditional coffee ceremonies, the preparation of coffee is carried out almost exclusively by women. The beans are roasted in front of guests on a small pan, ground with a wooden mortar and pestle, and then brewed in a distinctive clay pot known as a jebena. A coffee ceremony can last for more than an hour, and is considered a time for family members, neighbors, and friends to gather, talk, and strengthen their relationships. In many rural areas, people also add a few sprigs of Tina Adam, an aromatic herb with flavors reminiscent of lemon, mint, and citrus, to a cup of hot water. It is not used as a sweetener like cinnamon or sugar. Instead, this native Ethiopian herb gives the ceremony a distinctly local character, softening the coffee's aroma and significantly mellowing the sharp bitterness naturally found in Highland Arabica beans.